In so many ways, Ys 5 Lost Kefin Kingdom of Sand seems to offer exactly what fans of action RPG fans would always want, especially when it came out in 1995. This game has many redeemable qualities and even bears a striking resemblance to games like The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Nonetheless, it was never localized in North America, with Nihon Falcon deciding not to bring it stateside. But after my research, I think there's one major reason for that, and I'll get into that, in addition to telling you the good, the bad, and the ugly about Ys 5 in this video. But before I do that, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and let me know your memories of Ys 5 in the comments below. So first things first, if you're wondering how Ys 5 can be played in English today despite the fact that it was never officially localized, well, you are in luck because the good folks at Aeon Genesis created a translation patch for the ROM of this game back in 2013. And like most of their other projects, this is a really clean translation. You won't be confused by anything, there's no odd dialogue, and this is truly the way I recommend playing it today. Now, one thing that has to be said right away is that Ys 5 threw a curveball into the Ys series in one major way when it came to the gameplay. Unlike Ys 4, where Adol just runs into enemies to deal damage to them, or Ys 3, which was a side-scrolling action RPG, Ys 5 goes to a formula where it's an action RPG that's overhead, and you actually use a sword to attack enemies. Now, one might think that was an obvious choice given the types of games that were available back then and how games were being modernized, but many fans of the Ys series actually decry this choice because they believe it was too big of a departure, like the series had lost part of its charm by discarding its earlier combat gameplay. Whereas other fans actually like this choice and believe it was just a sign of the times and adapting to modern action RPG combat. Regardless of where you fall on that, there's no question that this choice made Ys 5 much more like Soul Blazer, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and Secret of Mana than the previous Ys games. The one thing I think you'll notice right away that hasn't stood the test of time too well though, is the hit detection. You'll be swinging your sword all around hitting enemies, but only like a fourth of the hits will actually land. This is because the game doesn't detect the hits very well. And sure, it's not like other games didn't have this problem like Secret of Mana, but it becomes super frustrating after a while. Now, the same is true of enemies hitting you, so it is kind of fair, so to speak, but it will be incredibly frustrating. You will adapt though, and you'll be able to pick up the cadence and rhythm of it, but at first I think you'll be struggling, and that's one area in which Ys 5 doesn't hold up too well. Regardless though, the gameplay is pretty simple, and Ys 5 is the kind of game that you can just pick up and play, especially when it comes to action RPGs. Much like the other Ys games, Ys 5 follows Adol Kristen, a red-haired adventurer. In this one though, he's seeking a new adventure, so he hears rumors of Kefin, an ancient desert city that vanished 500 years ago that's shrouded in mystery and legend and tied to the mysterious art of alchemy. Adol is hired by a wealthy merchant named Dorman, and he's tasked with finding crystals said to unlock Kefin's secrets as the spreading desert threatens nearby towns. So yeah, it's not like we're reinventing the wheel here, because just like in A Link to the Past and Final Fantasy I, we're searching for crystals. But that's not all there is to the story either. There are some good twists and turns, especially toward the end of the game, and the final dungeon is actually a mammoth of an area. Another way Ys 5 innovated in terms of the gameplay was through the magic system. Unlike in previous Ys games where magic was either non-existent or enabled only when equipping certain types of items, Ys 5 introduced a completely new magic system that was based around alchemy. Spells are created by combining elemental flux stones, which you find around the game, with specific magical abilities. The spells are then equipped and used in combat by charging and releasing them. Using these spells consumes magic points, or MP, and you don't regenerate MP. So there is some experimentation involved here, and it's kind of fun to play with, but there is one major problem. Most bosses can't be affected by magic at all, and those are the toughest encounters, so it really doesn't come in handy much of the time. Actually, the player can ignore magic for the most part, and that's mostly what I did. So instead of a valuable mechanic, magic just ends up becoming a hindrance. And call me old-fashioned, but I think if you're going to introduce a new game mechanic like this, you should actually balance the game around it. But nope, you can pretty much ignore magic throughout the entire course of the game. And that leads me to talking about the game's difficulty level. This is actually a very easy action RPG, all things considered. Like I said, some of the boss encounters are a little trickier, but even those seem built for beginners. This is definitely a game that doesn't frustrate you, and in some ways I can appreciate that. But players seeking a true challenge might get bored out of their minds, and this game can get monotonous. You're just walking around whacking things with your sword most of the time. When it comes to Ys soundtracks though, I have to give this one praise because I think it's the very best out of the first 5 Ys games. And that's because it goes with a more symphonic feel. It's not as power rock oriented as 3 or 4 is, and that was a welcome change. It just seems to fit the fantasy environment better, as far as I'm concerned anyway. Probably the oddest design choice of Ys 5 was the fact that monsters drop these little gems that you pick up, and instead of being money, you actually trade these gems in stores for money. So this middle step doesn't make sense at all, and it really makes me wonder what they are aiming for here. Interestingly enough, Adol can regain hit points gradually just by standing in the same location for some time. This works in most overworld areas and dungeons, but if you want to bypass it, you can also use items to regain your health right away. But if you go the item route, you actually have to go through this insane cumbersome menu, so it's really counterintuitive, and I did everything I could to avoid that. Unlike many action RPGs from the time, you actually have a jump button too, and some of the layouts are oriented with multiple elevations. So Adol will have to do some platforming, but the game really isn't designed completely around this, and it's actually not too frustrating. There's a few parts where you can fall down, but it's not a big burden. So all in all, I liked Ys 5, but it does have some glaring defects, especially when it comes to the gameplay. It's a little monotonous, a little easy, but I actually think the story was really well done. There's a few fun characters and good dialogue, and the translation was good too. I also like the musical score, but the magic system was a big downer. There's virtually no reason to use it, and that's probably the most disappointing thing about this game. So in addition to the faults I pointed out, I think Ys 5 was never localized in North America, not only because it was critically and commercially unsuccessful in Japan, but also that the Ys series had limited exposure in the West. Though most of the Ys games from this era actually have modern remakes that brought in a new fan base and got a lot of acclaim, Ys 5 doesn't yet, so it's really interesting to see in the years to come whether Nihon Falcom will do that. Until then, Ys 5 is a game that a lot of action RPG fans might have fun with, but it's not one of the best on the system. But I do want to hear from you. Have you played Ys 5, or is this the kind of game you'd like to play? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and consider becoming a YouTube member or Patreon patron for special perks like advanced viewing of my videos. And until I see you guys next time, take it easy.